very special guest, Tim Mackiddie. A couple of people show up in jeans there.
That's my level of hockey. I might actually come out and play.
Buddy, literally hoeing rows by hand, pruning, tying, and at that point, really just helping out guys. To say most chefs have a pretty decent ego on them is putting it lightly, right? So this is ridiculous. I did not need to learn any of this. It is so much, right?
Well, speaking of wine, because it looks like it's tough to get in there. This guy's a talker.
Yeah.
No, that's a good thing.
But anyways,
that's the chef's perspective.
Anyways, after the long-winded explanation as far as
we're just gonna slide.
We're getting back.
Over.
I did a little research in the bottle shop before I left. I went in guns a-blazing and asked some questions. So if you were to just turn the bottle upside down, essentially you'd get the sludge out, but the flakes would go the other direction. So that's why you got to do it slowly.
We've actually had a few accidents.
It's bro science at this point, man. I'm just winging it.
I love it.
You got it, right? It's a celebration in a bottle. Don't save it.
That actually is a very interesting philosophy. Drink bubbles every day. I like it.
Hey, welcome to the Wine Stuff and Wine Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Perry, with my hosts, Evan and Jesse McDonald on the other side of the table. We have a very special guest, Tim Mackiddie, who's an old hockey buddy of mine.
Yeah. Well, I guess if you want to call it hockey.
Well, the Sponge Puck is a hockey league that's been going on for 45 years here in Niagara-on-the-Lake.
I'd almost call it a national treasure at this point.
It's a local municipal treasure.
Yeah,
I'd say.
100%.
We got to call up Kraft, and we have to have your hometown hockey. And it'll be Sponge Puck 12-1 at the Virgil Marina.
It could be, no goalies,
arena.
Sponge Puck.
Yeah.
And, if you want to wear garden gloves when you play, that's fine too.
Yeah.
Right? Or even skates are optional at times. You can wear rubber boots if you really want.
Yeah. Well, we did have a couple of people show up in jeans there.
That's my level of hockey. I might actually come out and play.
Buddy, Do it. And I'm out of practice too. I know he's carrying the torch. I haven't been there in a couple of years, but it's a good time.
Well, it's good to see you again, my man. So you know what? Other than being a former Sponge Pucker, why don't you give yourself an intro?
Sure. So I'm a Niagara boy, born and raised. Kind of grew up in the wine industry, so to speak. So it's very near and dear to my heart. My dad's a vineyard ops guy. So my first job was when I was 14, working in the vineyards, with the migrant crew, which was interesting and gave you some neat perspective to the world. And I mean, doing everything from literally hoeing rows by hand, pruning, tying, and at that point, really just helping out guys. And then doing all the things inside the winery as well, from scrubbing tanks to moving pumps around, which, as a 14-year-old kid, when you're inside a tank with a pressure washer, it's the best thing in the world, right? So I mean, I kind of got started, my first real job outside of, my paper route was working at wineries in the summertime. And, nothing teaches you work ethic like working with your old man, that's for sure. So it was kind of an interesting start. And then from there, gradually got more interested into food. Food and wine has always, been big part of my family and my background. So eventually got into the culinary side of things. So that's where I've landed now. So, I've been cooking professionally for 17 years now. And, prior to, my personal venture now, I was with both Jackson Triggs and Enniskillen for 10 years as the executive chef there. Yeah. So, managing culinary operations at both properties, which was, quite interesting because it's not exactly your normal, kitchen job as to, you think of your typical restaurant job. Not that at all. We had some a la carte programming there, but mostly event focused. But really, the main mission was to highlight wine and sell wine, which is an interesting approach, from a culinary perspective, right? As a chef, and I mean, I don't think I'm, shedding new light on the industry, but to say most chefs have a pretty decent ego on them is putting it lightly, right? So, and especially, a young cook or a young chef. So, when I first jumped into the estate and, sort of was force-fed the narrative that the wine comes first and the food follows, is sort of tough to digest, right, for a little bit. But, once you kind of step back and look at it and really understand what a glass does to your food, it's almost like adding another level of seasoning or another component to the dish, right? You can change things immensely.
That's a cool concept because your main focus is the wine. So how do I make it expose what your true passion is, I guess, in a sense, right? Because you're working with the food. So how do I complement the wine and make it all happen? Right?
You got it. You got it. Right. And I mean, I think that's, it's so important for, how it shaped my career and, will shape it going forward, where I put a lot of emphasis on wine and obviously food and wine pairings. But, was fortunate enough that I was able to go back to school to study wine and, finished up WSET qualifications, which I went all the way through to WSET 3, which is like, it's as much a geography lesson as it is.
Right.
And you're learning like wine law, and I'm like, man. And the thing is, I took that course 5 years ago now, and I'm like, man. And it's one of those things, right? It's like if you don't use it, you lose it, right?
Yeah.
And I was going through books the other day and looking at I literally have like a 40-page review for the exam that I wrote of like point form note, and I was like, this is ridiculous. I did not need to learn any of this. Like, it's so much, right? But I mean, there's really no bad education, so it does create perspective, and it's neat to see what other people are doing. But I mean, to be completely transparent, like why I started learning about wine is, one, obviously I wanted to know how to pair it. But two, I wanted to find out what's the best bang for your buck. Like, how do you find like what's the best value wines, right? And then so and even if they're not coming from Niagara, where can you pick them up? Throughout the world, where you're going to get a great wine for a great price, sort of thing. And I mean, fortunately and unfortunately, that's a lot of times the way I will evaluate a wine is, what's the price of it? What does it compete with? Worldwide, and then base your decision as far as quality on there. Right. The only thing where you can run into a challenge is, and I mean, as you can imagine, it's a lot cheaper to produce grapes in Chile than it is in Niagara, right? For a magnitude of reasons, right? But
well, speaking of wine, because it looks like it's tough to get in there. This guy's a talker.
Yeah.
No, that's a good thing.
I shouldn't say sorry, because you've been forewarned. This guy's going to come in full of caffeine and ready to rock. So
that's great. This is amazing.
This is the Wine Stuff and Wine podcast. And I think this is the longest we've gone without me getting a glass of wine in my hand. Which is actually why I'm here.
If you're feeling parched, then
I'm feeling parched.
Yeah. All right.
So you brought a bottle of wine.
I did, yeah.
So tell us why you chose this bottle, and it's actually this is a Brut. So why you chose this bottle and what it means to you.
Yeah. So I'll open it while I talk.
Do it.
We'll do a little multitask here. So
that's good value. That's what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
Bang for your buck.
Yeah, you got it right. And you should side with this. I knew Jesse loved sparkling, so that's why I brought it. Right. So you got to do it. No.
Good choice. Good choice.
Yeah. That's probably the best answer, right? Yeah. But no, when I was picking these wines, when I picked this wine, I was kind of tossing up, what do I want to bring from Niagara? And, there was a group of grapes, because I feel there's certain things that we do very, very well in Niagara. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I think that, the Niagara wine industry is really hitting stride. And I mean, even over the last 10 years, there's been such a change in the Niagara wine industry. Not that it wasn't great before, right? But I just feel like we're really, figuring out what grapes to plant, what to focus on, what we want to do in the winery as far as the fermentation goes, and then, how long we're going to hang on to things before it hits market. So, I mean, it's in my opinion, some of the best things we do in Niagara is obviously ice wine is unparalleled, and that's really what put us on the map. We weren't the first to do it, but I would argue that we do it most consistently.
Yep.
And we make a damn good ice wine. But our Rieslings are phenomenal, and that's one of my favorite grapes, hands down. Our Pinot Noirs are great. We're doing a great job with Chardonnay. The cool climate grapes really thrive here. And
so you're a white guy.
No, not necessarily, right? I mean, it all depends. Like I really haven't met too many wines that I don't like, you know?
Yeah.
And it's funny because
I just didn't let you finish.
Yeah,
you were gonna
got it, right? You got it. I'm getting there, right?
Give me a minute.
But I mean, there is like, some snobbery in the wine world where,
of course,
sweet wines might be looked down upon. And, and when I say sweet wines, I mean sweet table wines, not ice wines or, botrytis affected wines. But, I do feel like there's a time and place for every wine, for the most part, right? And again, broad statement there, but for the most part, I feel like there's a time and place for every wine. So, I haven't met too many wines that I don't like. So whites, I mean, we do whites so well in the area, and they're bright and lively and vivacious, and there's a lot going on. But for the reds, like our cool climate, like I love Pinot Noirs, love. It's a very tough grape to produce. So I mean, everybody that does it well is an absolute madman. Yeah. But from a food standpoint, you got a lot of range on Pinot Noir. But I do also love our Cab Francs. I love Franc, and that's an oddball grape for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because sometimes if it's not getting ripe enough, there's going to be a lot of vegetal notes. but like from a food pairing, it's so good. Like you can even get like bell pepper off it, green beans, like weird stuff like this. But when you start matching red wines with vegetables, and get pretty cool, pretty freaky.
Yeah.
And also it's got high acidity. So I mean, I always equate like our Francs in the area to like the Italian reds, where you have some good acidity, some good structure, and you're matching that up with like tomato-based pasta dishes. And I'm like, our Francs are like just like that, like pizza wines, pasta wines, things that have high acidity to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyways,
that's the chef's perspective.
Yeah.
Like
so
anyways,
after the long-winded explanation, as far as
I'm just gonna slide.
we're getting back.
Over.
Yeah.
And so
Evan's like, man.
Yeah. And so we're out of time.
Like
Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, that was great. That was great, guys.
Great intro.
So I did pick this brut from Chateau de Charmes, and so it's an equal blend of Chardonnay and Pinot Noir.
Yeah.
Traditional method, and it's stayed on lees for 2 to 3 years. I did a little research in the bottle shop before I left. I went in guns a-blazing and asked some questions. So when I say on lees, and the secondary fermentation of the wine, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar or your viewers are familiar, but essentially it'll start out with a still wine, and then it will get put into bottle with yeast and a dosage of sugar. From there it gets capped, and then it starts to ferment again. That's how you get the bubbles inside the bottle. So obviously, because there is that yeast in there, it's going to go into the bottle. So that essentially would be the lees, the on lees. So it would sit in a rack and essentially get riddled out. So the bottle slowly gets turned upside down, forcing that to the neck of the bottle before it's frozen and then disgorged. Essentially, you remove the yeast. So it's an interesting thing because there's essentially, let's see if I can do this with my lefty. As far as the yeast and the sediment in the bottle, there's almost like a thick sludgy one. This isn't like the pretty side of winemaking. This is how it works, right? There's like a thick sludgy one and then like a lighter one, like more of a flaky sediment. So if you were to just turn the bottle upside down, essentially you'd get the sludge out, but the flakes would go the other direction. So that's why you got to do it slowly and let the thing come down. It was traditionally done in a riddling rack. So, a single person would essentially turn bottles by hand until they were almost upright, before disgorging, before getting this out. And it's wild. Like if you're looking at like old school wine production before we figured out like, glass, the quality of glass and shape of bottle, these riddlers would literally wear like face shields to go down the cellar because these bottles would explode because the pressure was so crazy on them. I mean, that's why like sparkling bottles have that in the bottom, that dent.
It's a big punt.
It's called a punt. Yeah. And that actually helps with the pressure of the wine. Yeah, it's wild. So yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like when you're taking a bottle of sparkling apart, keep your finger on the cork until you absolutely have to take it off, because sometimes they'll let loose.
I was actually watching you do that.
Yeah. Because sometimes they'll let loose. And also, if things get crazy and the wine starts flowing out, put the bottle on 45. And it'll actually prevent the wine from spilling over. Yeah, it's sort of a weird thing using the shape of the bottle.
Science.
We've actually had a few accidents.
It's bro science at this point, man. I'm just winging it.
I love it.
So yeah, I was saying to Jesse, I haven't tried this wine yet, so this is all new to me.
Good. This is a first then.
But yeah, like I said, I think we do sparklings very well here in the area. And I mean, I love wines from down here in Niagara-on-the-Lake, but also up the Benchway. I love the wines from up there too. But even getting up into Prince Edward County, I think you're going to start seeing some really neat sparklings coming from up that way as well. Because one thing that's really important with a sparkling wine is you want to have good acidity to it. It'll stand up to the bubbles, the extending aging, all that good stuff, and create some more complexity. I mean, if you look at Champagne, it's like, such a crazy place to grow grapes as well, where it's like, it's cold, it's chalky, it's miserable for the vines, but you do get some really, unique wines with high acidity to them.
I think you're also seeing, though, in our area that there's more and more of a market for bubbles,
100%,
right? It's
100%.
It's something that people kind of like, it goes hand in hand with luxury, and it's become more popular. And I think now
parties,
you got it right. It's a celebration in a bottle, right?
Yeah.
Every time when you hear the, and I mean, maybe I should have let her go a little bit, but like when you hear that pop, right? Like it's just like, man, like, but at the same time, like, I do agree that there is a luxury thing behind it, and it's a special and celebration. But like I tell everybody, like, drink bubbles every day. You know what I mean? Like it really, don't save it.
That actually is a very interesting philosophy. Drink bubbles every day. I like it.
Yeah, it's a good one to have. Yeah. Absolutely. And I mean, and when you start looking at the different types of sparkling wines too, like you can literally pair sparkling wine throughout an entire meal.
Yeah.
Right. Because I mean, there's different varietals that obviously, you know, you can get some single varietal stuff where, you know, say you might have a Riesling or even a Sauvignon Blanc sparkling to start, and then getting into something maybe a little more traditional, or there's a, you know, like a Blanc de Blanc, it would be a Chardonnay only. So probably brighter, good structure, bright acidity to it. There's a Blanc de Noir, which would just be made with Pinot Noir as an example. So it's going to have, you know, a little bit more deepness, a little more richness to it. And then there's obviously rosés as well. So, I mean, there's a bunch of different, and then, you know, if you want to start talking about the sugar content of wine too, there's a bunch of different styles of sparkling as well. So, I mean, like I said, when you come down to a dinner, like you literally could pair sparkling right across the board, right across the board.
It's interesting though that like we enjoy like doing like dinner tastings, and that's never been an option.
Right.
So I'm wondering why. Maybe it's because most people don't want that, or
Make your voice heard, girl.
Yeah.
Let them know. Let them know,
Pair it
right?
right through, always sparkling.
I would love that. That would be like the idea.
You can ask for
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah,
Let's
Lisa's
give this
a
a shot.
massive
Let's-
sparkling.
I
Yeah.
already skipped. I skipped and had
Yeah,
a sip.
don't wait
I
for
had-
me. Don't wait for me.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for coming on the Wine Podcast.
Very nice. And it's also that like a sparkling, like an early, it's never frowned upon when it's early in the day and someone's drinking a sparkling.
No, mimosas are great.
Yeah.
Right? And you can
orange juice having your cereal, whatever.
right.
Yeah.
But no, it's a neat wine, and you know, it's funny. And I know we are drinking this out of a white wine glass right now, right? So, but when you look at like the evolution of the sparkling wine glass, it actually started out as like a coupe glass,
Yeah.
right? It was wide, it was broad, you know, and then it was brought back to a flute,
Like a flute
to trap bubbles a little bit. And now, if you're looking at wine glasses moving forward, like we'll have to get some Riedel stemware in here at some point. And but the new Riedel like champagne glasses, sparkling glasses, they're all actually starting to bulb out again, much like a white wine glass.
Yeah.
Right? In the thought that it's going to create a bigger bouquet out of it, essentially. You know? So I mean, this wine here is great though. Like I find there's like some good complexity on the nose, right? And I mean, a lot of the complexity that you're getting up front, I find, is from that secondary fermentation. So you might smell like a toast, a bread, a yeast, maybe even, you know, definitely some yeastiness when you think of like bread baking or fresh, you know, if you've worked with a sourdough, you know, or made fresh bread. Yeah. And then obviously you're going to get some fruit that will follow that. So, I mean, you know, typically you're going to see a lot of apple, you know, on the sparklings in the area here, some citrus. You might even get like a strawberry. As weird as that sounds, you know, and when you're thinking of drinking a clear beverage and then getting strawberry, but sometimes, you know, even like a green strawberry, you can pull off that, or an
This one I'm
underripe
definitely
strawberry.
getting, like some green apple, and it's like
green
sour.
apple.
It's got like a sour, like it's tart, like it's it makes you pucker a little bit. It's like a stronger one.
Yeah. And I mean, another thing too that I love about sparkling wines is it creates the experience of texture as well. And I mean, all wines can do it, but I think sparklings just are really highlighted with the bubbles. You know? So there's a softness to it, right? That effervescence is very, very interesting as well. And I mean, again, when you start looking at, a food pairing too, you can start playing with textures of the dish and textures of the wine, you know? And I mean, ice wine's a great way to demonstrate that, as far as like you have that sort of syrupy, you know, consistency. So if you had like a richer dish, like a lot of butter or something on those lines, and then this one here, like you can easily match like an effervescence or like a lighter sauce, right? Or even butter with this would be great too.
Like an Alfredo.
I mean, like you could do, or like a carbonara as an example, right? Where it's like sort of a light egg-based sauce that's going to really sort of, when you think of like that soft decadence on your palate, it's almost hitting the same way the bubbles are, right? Yeah. Like there's like a softness, there's a prettiness.
This one definitely I find has got like almost the bubbles are like smaller, like the way it comes.
Yeah,
it's not like it's not like a big bubble.
Yeah, and that's a perfect description, man.
Yeah.
And it's like, and those are things that when you really want to start dissecting wines, that's stuff that you get into, right?
Yeah.
When you're looking at the mousse, right, and specific, it's how aggressive are the bubbles? How big are the bubbles? Are they lasting on the beverage?
This feels more like
do
it's
they
like
rate that?
Yes, they do.
They do.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
So
didn't know that.
when you start pulling wines apart, like there's so many different ways.
So what is that? What is that called when they're rating it?
So that would be a systematic tasting. So I mean, essentially, you would go down a grid, and I mean, this is obviously getting into the wine geek kind of stuff. But yeah, essentially, that would be one of the metrics that you would rate a sparkling wine on.
Okay.
And again, I mean, that's really a lot of that stuff before you were even to get into on the palate, all visual rating, right? So
But can you go to the wine store and say, like, what would the scale be, a 5 or a 10?
As far as
The
like,
bubbles.
how to rate them?
Yeah.
No, it would more or less just be a tangible rating, like where you would say it wouldn't be on necessarily a numeric
number.
scale.
Yeah.
But it would just be like, are the bubbles aggressive? Are they not aggressive? And I mean, again, there's a lot of like, and it's funny you say that too, because I mean, when you're looking at like rating wines, technically, you're generally using like a minus, medium plus, and high, right? To whatever it is. So whether it's acidity, body, or I mean, in the case of body, it'd be full body. But it's sort of like like this. It's kind of a loose scale. You know what I mean? And
Subjective almost.
Well, it is, and I think it kind of has to be.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing that's so crazy about wine is it's so subjective, like so subjective, right? Like,
sure.
and it's one, everybody's palate's going to be a little bit different. But two, everybody's reference point is different as well.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, I find this where, some people get intimidated tasting wine in a group setting or whatever it might be. Yeah. And it's like, man, like, and again, don't get me wrong. If you're getting paid to taste wine, you should know what you're doing. Yeah. Right. But at the same time, there's still a window, that you could land in, right? Like, I mean, if you're drinking this saying, oh, I taste blackberry. Well, you're kind of out in left field at that point, right? But there's...
Get out of here.
Yeah, but like, if
you're not welcome at this party.
If you're somewhere between like lemon and apple, like you're in the wheelhouse, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's, it's one of those things though, and
no, it's true though. Like when you're especially when you're in a group setting where people know wine, right? Like we've been to some parties where, it's, there's a chef there and they're pairing each dish, and then the guys are trying to guess which wine it is, and they're literally like saying they're able to pick out the region and the grade.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and that's like next level.
And I'm like, man, like if I was blindfolded, I'm not sure if I could tell you it was wine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm like, because this was like early on, we getting invited to like these parties.
Yeah.
And it was like both of us came from an athletic background where we didn't drink much. Right. And so we get there, and I'm like, ooh, wine, right? The like food's good, like just kind of dipping my toes in the sand. I'm like, these people are picking like what region in the world this came from.
Oh,
Bordeaux in
how you pulling this off?
But it's just time spent, right?
Yeah.
Like time spent. It's just practice, right? And I mean, the amount of time that I've spent with my nose in a glass of wine or tasting wine, like I couldn't even, right? Like I mean, you guys are wrestlers, right? Background.
Yeah.
It's like you couldn't tangible like how many minutes you've spent on the mat, right? Like it's just like. You know what I mean? Like it's just it's one of those things where it's just like you can't even quantify it.
That's true
right?
because I could probably distinguish like the way a mat smelled from which country. No, not just joking.
I like that.
That's not.
This guy's like
that's not a thing.
a wrestling room sommelier. He's like.
It does happen.
Double reverse.
You're blindfolded coming
slam.
in. The scent of India.
Russia's in here.
on this map.
Who's the monster? Was it Krellin from Russia? Who's the monster?
That would be the-
It smells like Krellin a little bit, right?
So we want to get into a little bit of, which we ask all of our guests, what is your favorite date night in Niagara? Where do you like to go? What do you like to do?
Well, to be fair, and maybe not the most exciting answer. Oh, thanks, buddy. Thank you. But we generally stay home. Like, as weird as that sounds, I guess, but, like the food's pretty decent at home.
Yeah.
And, and the wine selection's pretty good too. So me and Lisa, like whenever we can, we'll try to do, a night in.
Yeah.
But I mean, if we're going out, like there's so many great spots to stop, like if you're in Niagara and you're looking for a bite to eat, you got options, right? I mean, I'm sure you've heard of some of the favorites from the other guests you have in here. I think Garrison House probably got rattled around a couple times. Who I absolutely love. Like the owners of the place are great, and they do some great food, and it's approachable food, that kind of everybody can get into. Rafino's, Barbea, Ryan's doing a great job. Ryan and Brett, they're doing a great job down there, right? So, and those are literally up the street from each other, but there's like some good stops, like in Niagara Falls as well. Some good Indian restaurants out that way if you're looking for something, along those lines. Some pretty good Italian restaurants out that way too. But it's neat. Like Niagara-on-the-Lake is kind of a cool little hub where you have some great local spots. But St. Catharines is close. In downtown St. Catharines, there's some great spots in downtown St. Catharines. Like Odd Bar comes to mind. That's one of my favorite stops out that way.
So you're Irish? Is your last name Scottish? Irish?
Scottish.
Yeah. So I'm Scottish too. So what about like the Harp or the Old Angel?
Yeah. I mean,
there?
like, I think the harp, I don't see too much of, but like St. Patty's Day, that's the stop. You know what I mean? Like that's the stop. Yeah. So
shepherd's pie is delicious.
Yeah. I've had some of your I think they call them Irish nachos. or something along those lines, where they have like potato chip nachos, which like they're good. You know, I mean, I'm kind of like I'm a tortilla guy, like but at the same time, like they are good. You know, so there's lots of stuff in the area, and I mean, even if you're just, it's weird to like when you think of what Niagara-on-the-Lake is, to be like, oh, like bar hop Niagara-on-the-Lake, like it doesn't really work, right? The verbiage anyways. But like if you were to just sort of travel around Niagara-on-the-Lake and do a little stop and a bite at the Harp, at the Angel, Shawcat, like wherever you are downtown Niagara-on-the-Lake, like there's so much that you can travel to on foot, which is
actually
really
funny
neat.
because you're the second chef who said that date night they like to stay at home.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you never look at it because we're not chefs, right?
You're in the industry every day.
Yeah, so it's actually like an escape to stay at home and just cook there and do your own thing.
Yeah.
Then you go somewhere else and have someone else cook for you.
Right? And it's like, you don't got to worry about the driving and all the rest of it, right? Like,
like for us, like, I'd mess up cooking a bowl of Cheerios, right? So like
we can work on that. It's really not that hard.
my daughter's actually doing a pretty good job of teaching. She's got it figured out. But like that's about the extent of what I'm allowed to touch in the kitchen. Otherwise, people get sick. So for me, going out is key, right? Like that's like our release from like our busy lives and stuff like that is travel and food and wine. Like Jesse's a great cook, but it's nice to get out and experience the environment, right? Which obviously has been tough for the last couple of years, but it's funny hearing your perspective because you're in that environment always. Yeah. And just to like chill at home and low key and pamper yourself with maybe like, like experimenting on your own dishes.
Yeah, you got it, right?
Is where you want to go on date night. It's cool.
Yeah, definitely. So that's kind of our ideal date night.
Yeah, that's nice. Maybe we can have date night at your house one time.
Yeah.
All of us? Yeah.
It sounds nice. Like it's
you cooking, buddy?
I'm actually a decent cook.
Right.
I'm more of a barbecue guy though.
I was actually commenting on the weekend. You were making some type of, I don't know, it was some cinnamony looking with the frosting.
Yeah. So everybody's like, "What's the recipe?" So we take up pizza dough and we cut it into balls and then we put cinnamon on it. That's it. That's it, man. Monkey bread.
Yeah.
There you go.
You could have made that more complicated.
But my wife she does like everything amazing. So we did homemade beer battered haddock.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
It was amazing. Scottish, right?
Yeah.
Gotta have some of that.
Yeah.
It was just delicious. And then whatever, we had some pizza dough, and she's vegan, so she doesn't eat that. So we make a vegan pizza for her. Then we cut it all up, and then throw some. She does like a homemade icing. It's vegan.
Yeah.
I don't know how she does it.
Yeah.
That was
now,
the icing.
Yeah, we've touched base on what a couple average chefs are able to accomplish. Cheerios and a roll of bread with sprinkles on it.
Pretty much killing the game, boys.
That's amazing.
Now we get into the professionals. So you were the chef at Jackson Triggs and Inniskillen, and that's the past, right? So that was that's really cool. Like hats off to you. Obviously, we've been there while you were there, and that was great.
Yeah.
But now, tell us a little bit about what you're onto right now.
Yeah. So I guess the the 2.0 version on the other side of this craziness we just went through. So I've launched a company. It's called Smoke and Barrel Niagara. So I guess to kind of coin it, it would be a winery focused catering company. So we're obviously doing all sorts of I guess corporates are kind of what we lean to as corporate style events, but really, bringing some entertainment and education to the table where we want to have discussions between each course about food and wine. Cool. Obviously make it approachable though, because I know it's very easy to, to kind of get lost in the world that is. There's so much to know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a big part of it, but also we've developed a line of spice rubs for the home cook, and also some charcuterie items. So some wine country charcuterie. So, so we are looking to, venture into sort of the wholesale side of things and the dry good side of things. So it's just interesting, and when you're looking at, the culinary world or the hospitality world, like it's, there's some time spent, and you need to spend time doing it, right? To be the best at it, you really need to spend time doing it. And, like I discussed, being at the Estates for those years, I was very career focused, and it was awesome. I was able to, really load the toolbox up. And like I said, it wasn't your normal culinary job where you're doing events and a la carte stuff and media stuff and recipe development. There's just so much more going on. So it's, using the tools you gain, but as a young manager, it was perfect. And, taking those tools and moving forward with it. And, sort of, I guess it's sort of cliche to say balance the at home life with the work life balance.
Yeah.
But Lisa and I, we have a young daughter now, so it's it's great to enjoy her. And the pandemic is, as weird as it sounds, and kind of I sound almost selfish saying it, but it's been great to really sort of step back and enjoy time with Alls, our daughter, and Lee, and like we were talking about date night at Niagara. One thing that I think might get overlooked in Niagara is just the natural resources we have here and how much fun you can have just exploring. Like we spent so much time hiking and traveling the escarpment. Like the Bruce Trail runs through Niagara, right?
Yeah, it goes right through our property.
And it's amazing. Like when you jump on there, just the amount of landscape you can see when you travel through the Bruce, it's unreal. And I mean, as far as outdoor stuff goes, like, having the lakes close by is amazing. The Niagara River's close by, which is amazing. And the golf courses too, right? So, I mean, that's been another big thing. Yeah. It's like,
gotten out and enjoyed the local community.
Well, yeah, it's like, it's funny where it's like you almost feel like you dipped your toe into retirement a little bit, where it's like, you're enjoying the golf courses, and obviously the wineries are around. And I mean, if you're into cars, like there's some great driving roads in the area as well. So I mean, that's actually another date thing that me and Lisa do is we try, and especially when when we are busy with work, is Sundays we usually try to get out in the cars and go for a rip. There's some great drives up like Benchway sort of
Highway
thing,
8,
but down there too. I mean, we'll usually go up towards Hamilton and then jump on Ridge Road and then kind of take that back sort of thing.
Beautiful.
So yeah, again depends what car we got. I got an old one which is more or less made for going straight, and I got a newer one which is pretty fun around the turn. So it's it depends. Obviously, keep it within the speed limit always, and but you do get to enjoy some great scenery. So it's like if you're looking at relocating down to Niagara, it's it's such a cool spot where you're far enough away from the cities, that you can enjoy the country. You can enjoy the things like golf, trails. If you got cars, you get to cruise them around, on farm roads and that sort of thing. But at the same time, you're still within, earshot of Niagara Falls. If you want to go see the tourist life and the craziness that is Clifton Hill and everything that surrounds it, then it's very close to. I was just pointing at the one of our new tourism girls for Niagara girls, one of our new tourism girls for Niagara Falls. I mean, the falls is close by, so it's easy to get there and see that side of it. And then you got cities like St. Catharines close by too. Yeah. And I would hate to leave out like the Wellands of the world, because there's some cool eateries out that way. And Chippewa too. And I think Chippewa gets overlooked, where it's like this neat little cottage town, right?
Yeah, and Port Colborne too, and you got the Smoking Buddha. Lots of good stuff.
Some interesting places popping up, smokehouses, and then there's a spot on the water in Welland we went to last year.
Right on the
beautiful. Great spot. I've been there.
Yeah.
I've been
You got
there.
that what's the one in Font Hill? Culinary something.
Oh yeah.
Shoot.
It'll come to
really
me.
nice place too.
Yeah, it's the same guys that own Johnny Rocco's.
Okay.
And,
It's beautiful.
Oh yeah.
Culinary.
Font Culinary.
Anyways,
Yeah.
there's some good spots.
It's a good one.
Look,
It's cool.
Google it. Google it.
Yeah.
Right? Look it
So-
up.
It's in Font Hill.
So we always wanted to do this, and this is kind of something that you do. You can correct me if I'm wrong. We wanted to have like some of our, really close clients, maybe some of our realtors from the office. We always wanted to do like a little table set up in our lounge where we have, some nice steak, and we pair it with a nice wine. Is that kind of something that you do as well? You like a presentation kind of thing?
You got it, man.
And then you walk people through.
100%, right? So
That's
if it's like a structured food and wine pairing, that's something, as you alluded to earlier, I don't mind talking about food and wine, right? So it's one of those things where it's like, I mean, and I love that. Like, I love being able to share knowledge of food and wine and also hear other people's stories of food and wine, right? And I mean, it's interesting where everything is based on reference and, perspective and sort of what you've grown up on, of
course.
Yep, absolutely.
So I mean, I really enjoy sharing those moments, with people. And that's, I guess over the pandemic, that's one thing that I've missed the most, is really being able to discuss food and wine in, an informal but professional setting, right? Where you can kind of get a little carried away, right?
Yeah.
So you were saying you do corporate though. So like, how many people do you typically do it for?
I mean, that can range extensively. But, I mean, one thing that I can say, you know, I've had practice with being over at the Estates is cooking outside of a kitchen. So there's really, you know, we can come in, kind of bring the kitchen and the food to you guys. And as far as numbers go, it's, you know, really just keep the tally rocking, right? And I always think it's so interesting to do that sort of oddball out of the mix kind of catering, you know, where it's like you might have to set up a kitchen, or maybe you're cooking over nothing but fire and, you know, you're out in a vineyard somewhere. So I love all that stuff where it almost adds another element to that kitchen experience where it's, you know, it's obviously challenging, you know, for me and the team, which I find super interesting as well. But I mean, with catering, and again, our tourism girl from Niagara Falls is shaking her head at me because we've had some fun. But I mean, it's like, you know, I get bored easily, I guess you could say. And I mean, when you present those challenges, it's always interesting. And the thing with, like, when you're catering, you literally have one shot to get it right. You know, and there could be a lot be waiting on that one shot, right? And especially if you're going to the table talking about the food before you serve it, you know, like there's a couple working parts to it, right? But it's all
I absolutely love
fun.
that concept, though.
Private.
To have small private events, intimate setting, do it with friends and clients or whatever, and then I think everybody really enjoys that. And I think that's why a lot of people love coming to wine country. Is because you go to a winery and you get an experience and you learn something. Right. And as you drink the wine, you learn a little bit about the process and what goes into it. And most people who've never been on a wine tour, leave a wine tour, having way more respect for what goes into wine.
You got it, man. And it's a very unique experience as well, right? Like, I mean, the experiences that you're going to have at said winery or with me are going to be very unique to us and what we do, right? And I mean, you know, if you're looking at Smoke and Barrel, like, you know, stylistically, the food that we present and the way that we approach dining is going to be very unique to us. And I mean, and that's our whole goal is, like, we want to create something where you have never had before, right? It's something new for you and for your guests, right?
And so are you back doing events now?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we're obviously, it's you know, February right now, so we're slowly rolling back into it. Restrictions just lifted, which was you know, a bit of a bummer because we had a bunch planned up for the Ice Wine Festival, but it is what it is. So we're getting back into it.
So how do we book you? How does someone watching this and they're like, I got to do this?
So either you can link up with me through, you know, the social handles on Instagram. It's SB Niagara on Instagram, or
SB Niagara.
SB Niagara, SB Niagara, or check out the website smokeandbarrelniagara.com. And all of our contact info is on there, so you can and my email contacts and all the rest of it. So so you can link up with us, you know, in a couple different ways.
Well, we're gonna book you for something for sure.
Yeah, we're gonna have something here for sure.
That's right up our alley. That's probably one of my favorite things, especially in the summer. Is to do things like that. We do it all the time, but it's just that's a blast. I love it.
We'll do a fire cookout.
Yes,
get some nice steak going.
Yeah,
right
sure.
On the fire.
Yeah, I'm in.
Right on.
I'm in. All right. Well, so your background, you're both Olympians.
Yeah.
Right? Where are you from originally?
Originally from all over the place.
Yeah.
My dad was in the military, so I was born in Germany and then just kind of
right on the land of beer and pork. Yeah. I am in, buddy. I am in.
Yeah. So you know what? We're all over the place. So she's from Windsor, born and raised.
Nice. And you guys met at Brock, I
take
it?
Yes, we both came to Brock to wrestle and train on the national team. And then as time progressed, you know, you start making your way, wandering around, like you said, going on date drives. So we didn't have choice of vehicle back then. We just had one beater.
Yeah. We didn't have one that handled nice around corners.
And we couldn't make it to Hamilton, so Niagara-on-the-Lake was as far as we could go.
Hey, that's all right. Nice spot to land then. Nice spot to land. So I do have to ask, though, and I mean, I know it's Winter Olympics going on right now, so, you know, not summer. But, like, do you guys, like, what's the feeling you guys get when you see the Olympics going on? Like, I mean, you have to relate to these athletes, right?
Oh, yeah. Like, I feel you definitely like, I think the one thing is when you see sometimes the negative comments going out about, like, basically making fun of an athlete who just messed up, and you know what that athlete put in. Yeah. And to me, it's just like, it's just hard. Like, it's almost like you feel their pain. Yeah. Right. Like, everybody has experienced like a failure or something like that, or they messed up their routine or whatever their sport is. But yeah, I definitely think I feel them more that way. Where I think that some people are very insensitive to the fact of, like, what those people have, like, put on the line to be where they're at. Yeah.
I think in general we see that in social media and in the world right
for sure,
now.
right? Where it's like
5% jerk factor.
Well, it's very easy to be that armchair critic when you don't know the effort that got put in, right? And I mean, and
Yeah.
again, that translates right back to
Somebody
the
who can barely get
TripAdvisor
off
reviews
the
and all the rest of it,
Well,
right? Where
on Instagram, I saw the other day that someone said it would be awesome to see the average person do the routine first.
Just so we could see how good
They are.
oh, it'd be great.
True.
Yeah.
It'd be great.
Put some reality,
It'd be great.
like some perspective into like how ridiculous even the last place finisher is.
Yeah.
Like they'll blow you know what I mean?
No, it'd
Just
be
the
great.
average person.
It'd be great, right?
That would be like me doing all of the appetizers.
Yeah,
for
and
your
then
food. So
and then
people
us
have an
going
appetizer
and then
I
us
cook.
going to the mat afterwards, right? You know what I mean?
I
Like,
can do it.
That would actually be a good event. So I do the apps. People are sick.
Little bowls of
And Tim,
Cheerios.
you do the
wrestling.
abs, and then I gotta wrestle this monster over here.
You bring out the main event, right? The main food. Everyone's like, "Oh man, this is so amazing. That app was terrible."
Yeah.
And then we wrestle.
All right,
it's-
all right.
And I'll bring the
Sounds
guitar.
like a night. You bring the wine. Yeah,
the perfect night.
amazing.
what
And
it
then how did you? And then just to kind of bring it along. Now, how did you guys hook up?
Just through Revel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Revel,
Now,
really.
were you
through
in real
business.
estate before you met them?
No, that's how we met.
Yeah,
it was,
that's how we
it
met.
was real
Okay.
estate just through Revel.
So
Yeah.
what drives you guys in real estate?
Well,
Why did you get into it?
Well, for me, I was always in the sales world.
Okay.
I was a bartender at first, so I know like a lot about, when you mentioned the pop, a lot of people think that you want to silence that pop, but you don't. You want to see everybody wants to see what's that excitement going on, right? So I learned some of that. But I was always in sales in the corporate world and, running sales teams. And I was like, how can I sell a unit that's not making me $30 a unit? How can I sell something that's making me more money? And at the beginning, that's how it started. I just wanted to sell something to make more money. I was single. I didn't have cajillion kids, and I didn't have responsibilities. And that's how it kind of developed where, if I could put my expertise and skills into something that would be a little bit more lucrative, I could make a life for myself. I didn't have a lot in my 20s. I was just being a 20-year-old, partying, drinking. I was a signed musician, so I was going on tour, partying more than I was in the recording studio, so that was probably problem number one. And then it was just one of those things, man, where you catch the burning desire to sell, and then that develops into an actual business, which I think a lot of salespeople take for granted. They don't consider their role as a business owner. And then once I met these two, it was kind of that perfect marriage between how can I take my business to the next level, and it was, partnering up.
Yeah, and are you guys real estate background, or what were you into before real estate?
Just to be honest, it was sports, right?
Yeah.
That's all. That's all we did was
I was a
wrestling
full-time
and-
teacher too.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
What age?
Kindergarten actually all the way to grade 8.
Okay.
Yeah, I was a French teacher.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah, she came right out of university, got a contract really quick.
And
So
in the
very
area here?
fortunate.
Or?
Yeah, so at one point I was wrestling in the national team, teaching full-time, and selling real estate.
Damn.
It's a busy life.
Yeah, that's a big
That's
plate.
insane.
Yeah, it was full.
Yeah, but for me, we started in real estate young. When I think I was 19 or 20 when we bought our first home.
Right.
And but for me, real estate now, I am extremely competitive.
Yeah.
So it's I just see each sale as just like a win type of thing. So I think that it's replaced a little bit of that wrestling part of my life where now I'm just hunting for another sale. I don't know. We can't even play board games on separate teams because it will lead to a fight. 'Cause we both like to win a lot.
Yeah.
This happened recently.
Yes. Yeah. Speaking from experience.
Yeah. Doesn't go well.
Look, Tim, honestly, we appreciate your time here.
Yeah, man.
and
No, it's been
you know,
great.
we learned a lot. And we're gonna have you back and do a little cook-off for us. Cook and learn.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
we
learn.
look forward
Yeah,
to that.
Absolutely.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, well, shout out to Chateau de Charms.
Good job, guys.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
The
No,
brute
it's good sparkling. It is.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
delicious.
And,
It's good
and
sparkling.
what is the wine again, Tim?
This here
Yeah.
is their Brute. It's a blend of Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, available at LCBO or at the estate. $26. Well worth it.
Good
Very
value.
Definitely
nice.
well worth
Thank
it.
All
you.
right, well worth it.
All right.
Well done, guys.
Okay,
Cheers.
thanks you
Cheers.
guys. Appreciate it.